Hi, welcome back. In our previous session, we transacted unit number 2 of class 10 English readers reading comprehension, The Dear Departed. It's a one-act play. Here some of the key characters are Amelia Slater and Elizabeth Jordan. Amelia Slater's husband is Henry Slater and Elizabeth Jordan's husband is Ben Jordan. Amelia's daughter is Victoria. Amelia's father, Abel Merriweather, is dead. Amelia is planning to own the properties of her father. Amelia makes sure her husband's slippers are replaced by the father's slippers. Furthermore, she wants to steal the bureau of her father's. She wants to get on the bureau to the downstairs. And now, the rest of the play is as follows. Henry says he is stupefied by the idea of his daughter's thefting of the bureau of her father. Henry says, I wouldn't care to. Then Mrs. Slater, don't look so daft. Why not? Daft means stupid. Don't look so stupid. Why shouldn't we bring down the bureau to the downstairs? She says. Then what does Henry say? It doesn't seem delicate somehow. Yes, it's a heavier object. Henry feels it's so difficult to bring it down. Now what does Mrs. Slater say? We could put them that shabby old chest of drawers upstairs where the bureau is now. Elizabeth could have that and welcome. I always wanted to get rid of it. The couple have an old chest of drawers. They want to get it replaced with the bureau, father's bureau, which means Amelia Slater wants to keep her old chest of drawers in the father's room and the bureau is brought to the downstairs. Henry says, suppose they come when we are doing it. In short, Amelia plans to steal her father's bureau. Then Henry suspects if at all the bureau is bringing down exactly at the same time your sister and husband comes, what would happen then? He asks. Then Mrs. Slater says, I'll fasten the front door. Get your coat off, Henry. We'll change it. So she said she would fasten the front door. Mrs. Slater goes out to fasten the front door. Henry takes his coat off. Henry removes his coat. Mrs. Slater reappears. Again, she appears in front of him. Mrs. Slater says, I'll run up and move the chairs out of the way. And at that time, Victoria appears, dressed according to her mother's instructions. And Victoria is now in black as a sign of mourning. Mourning the death of her grandfather. Her grandfather's name is Abel Merriweather. Then what happens? Victoria questions. What have you got your coat off for father? So Victoria questions her father. Father, why have you removed your coat? Then Henry says, Mother and I are going to bring grandfather's bureau down here. Victoria again questions. Are you planning to pinch it? Pinch means to steal something in this context. To steal or to theft something in this context. Then Henry says, shocked. He was initially shocked by his daughter's question. And then he said, no, my child, Grandpa gave it to your mother before he died. Victoria keeps quizzing her father. This morning? Henry says, yes. Then Victoria says, he was drunk this morning. So, her grandfather might be a drunkard. He might have consumed alcohol that morning. Then what happened? Mrs. Slater appears carrying a handsome clock under her arm. As it was said, Mrs. Slater went upstairs. She came back with a clock. It appears costly. Mrs. Slater says, I thought I would fetch this stone as well. She puts it on the mantelpiece. Mantelpiece means a shelf projecting from the wall over the fireplace. Our clocks are worth nothing and this always appealed to me. So Mrs. Slater further stole the costly wall clock of her father's. Then Victoria says, that's Grandpa's clock. Mrs. Slater, be quiet. It's ours now. Come, Henry, lift your end. They are all set to pinch the bureau of Abel Meriwether. Henry and Mrs. Slater, very hot and flushed, stagger in with a pretty old-fashioned bureau containing a locked desk. They put it where the chest of drawers was and straightened the ornaments, etc. There is a knock at the door. The knocking is repeated. Both Henry and Amelia got succeeded in replacing their old chest of drawers with the bureau of Abel Meriwether. Straight away, they heard the sound of knocking at the door. Who was that? Victoria ushers in Ben and Miss Jordan. Ushers means lead or welcome. So, Victoria ushers in Ben and Miss Jordan. So, they arrive. Who? Amelia's sister Elizabeth Jordan and her husband Ben Jordan. The latter means Mrs. Jordan, is a stout, a complacent woman. Complacent means self-satisfied woman. And she was stout, with an irritating air of being always right. She is wearing an outfit of a new mourning. So she was also in black as a token of mourning. Ben is also in complete new mourning. He is rather a jolly little man, but at present trying to adapt himself to the regrettable occasion. Miss Jordan sails into the room and solemnly goes straight to Mrs. Slater and kisses her. Then the men shake hands. Then Miss Jordan says, "Well, Amelia, and so he is gone at last." Who has gone? Her father. Mrs. Slater says, "Yes, so he has gone. He was 72 fortnight last Sunday." So just last fortnight he turned 72. She sniffs back at her. Sniffs means evilly. In tear. Ben, cheaply means cheerfully. He isn't bothered about the death of his father-in-law. He cheaply said, "Now, Amelia, you mustn't give up. We are all got to die sometime or other." Amelia, you don't bother. We are all die sometime. Mrs. Jordan says, "And now, perhaps you will tell us all about it." So, Mrs. Jordan inquires how this particular incident happens. What incident? How her father is dead. Then, what's the reply of Amelia? Mrs. Slater says, "Father had been married this morning. He went out soon after the breakfast to pay his insurance." As per Amelia, her father was cheerful that morning. Thereafter, he had his breakfast and went out. Thereafter, he had his breakfast and went out for paying his insurance. Then Ben says, "My word, it's a good thing he did." What was the good thing? Abel went out to pay insurance. Mrs. Jordan says, "He always was thoughtful in that way. He was too honorable to have gone without paying his premium." Mrs. Jordan hates her father. Why she likes her father? Because he went out to pay his insurance. Henry says, "And when I came in, I found him undressed, sure enough, and snug in bed." Then Miss Slater says, "And when we had finished dinner, I thought I would take up a bit of something on a tray. He was lying there for all the world as if he was asleep. So I put the tray down on the bureau," correcting herself, "on the chest of drawers and went to waken him." A pause. "He was quite cold." Amelia narrated the moment of how she had come to know the death of her father. Mistakenly, she said she put the tray on the bureau. Thereafter, she corrected her mistake. That's it. Then, Miss Slater further says, rising briskly at length in a business-like tone, "Well, will you go up and look at him now, or shall we have tea?" Shall we go to see the father, or we shall have a tea first? Mrs. Slater asks. Then Mrs. Jordan says, "What do you say, Ben?" Mrs. Jordan questions Ben. Then Ben, "I'm not particular." Mrs. Jordan says, "Well, then if the kettle is ready, We may as well have tea first. Look at how selfish these people are. What does Mrs. Jordan say? She wants to have tea first, then to see her dead father. Then Henry says, one thing we may as well decide now is the announcement in the papers. Looks like they seem to be sharing the properties of Abel Merriweather. Then Mrs. Jordan says, I was thinking of that. What would you put? A pause. Mrs. Jordan says, her sister, well, we'll think about it after tea and then we'll look through his bits of things and make a list of them. There's all the furniture in his room. Here is the wonderful suggestion given by Mrs. Amelia. What does she suggest? To have a tea first, thereafter to list out the goods belong to Abel Merriweather. Afterwards, they will be sharing these properties. How ridiculous it is. Then Henry says, there's no jewelry or valuables of that sort. Mrs. Jordan says, except his gold watch. He promised that to our Jimmy. Who is Jimmy? Jimmy is the son of Mrs. Jordan and Ben Jordan. What does Mrs. Jordan say here? Her father owns a gold watch and he promised to give that gold watch to her son Jimmy. Then Mrs. Jordan says, promise your Jimmy. I never heard of that. Mrs. Jordan says, oh, but he did, Amelia, when he was living with us. He was very fond of Jimmy, you know. Some time ago, Abel was living along with his another daughter, Miss Jordan. And what Elizabeth says is that father promised that gold watch to her son, Jimmy. Mrs. Slater says, well, amazed. I don't know. Ben says, anyhow, there's his insurance money. Have you got the receipt for the premium he paid this morning? Mrs. Slater says, I have not seen it. Victoria jumps up from the sofa and comes behind the table. Victoria all of a sudden jumps up from the sofa and comes behind the table. Why? Victoria says, Mother, I don't think Grandpa went to pay his insurance this morning. Victoria confidently said her grandfather did not go to pay the premium, the insurance. Mrs. Hudson, he went out. Then Victoria says, yes, but he didn't go into the town. He met old Mr. Tattersall down the street and they went off past St. Philip's Church. So what Victoria says here is that her grandfather, along with his friend Mr. Tattersall, went to church that morning. Then Ben says, do you think he hasn't paid it? Was it overdue? What is meant by overdue? Overdue means not paying money on a stipulated time. Mrs. Slater says, I should think it's overdue. Mrs. Jordan says, something tells me he's not paid it. So all of them are getting worried. Why? Because Abel Merriweather hadn't paid insurance premium. Then says, the drunken old beggar. What did he say? He scolded. The drunken old beggar. Mrs. Jordan says, he's done it on purpose, just to annoy us. Mr. says, after all I've done for him, having to put up with him in the house these 3 years, it's nothing short of swindling. Swindling means cheating. Amelia exhibited a bitter cry due to she looked after her father for 3 years. Then what Mrs. Jordan said? I had to put up with him for 5 years. If Amelia took care of her father for 3 years, Mrs. Jordan looked after her father for 5 years. Mrs. Slater says, and you were trying to turn him over to us all the time. Yes, of course, father was with you for all those 5 years, but you always kept on trying to send him to my house. Henry says, but we don't know for certain that he is not paid the premium. Mrs. Slater says, Victoria, Run upstairs and fetch that bunch of keys that's on your grandpa dressing table. Then Amelia orders Victoria to bring the bunch of keys kept on the dressing table of her father. Victoria says, timidly. Timidly means lot of fear. Timidly means lot of fear. In Grandpa's room? Yes, later. Yes. Victoria says, I don't like to. Mrs. Slater says, don't talk so silly. There's no one who can hurt you. Victoria goes out reluctantly. Shit, I'll go. We'll see if he's locked the receipt up in the bureau. So they want to get the news confirmed, whether Abel paid the insurance premium or not. Ben says, and where? In this thing? He raises and examines it. Once again, mistakenly, America used the word bureau. But the bureau is kept there itself. Ben caught the point. Bureau? Is this the bureaus? Is this the same bureau you are talking about? Ben questions. Then Mrs. Jordan says, also raising, where did you pick that up, Amelia? It's new since last I was here. Amelia, I haven't seen it ever. How did you get this bureau? They examine it closely. Mrs. Slater says, oh, Henry picked it up one day. Henry purchased it on particular day, as Amelia says. Victoria says, Mother, Mother! Oh my God, she shouts. Mrs. Slater says, what is it, child? Victoria says, Grandpa is getting up. Ben, what? Mrs. Slater says, what do you say? Victoria says, Grandpa is getting up. Mrs. Jordan, the child is crazy. Mrs. Slater says, don't talk so silly. Don't you know your grandpa is dead? But Victoria says, no, he's getting up. I saw him. They are transfixed with amazement. Victoria clings to Mrs. Slater. My God, everyone was shell-shocked. What this illegal is saying? Is it true or not? Then Ben says suddenly, hish! Listen. He alerts. It's a sort of surprise. Hish. They look at the door. A slight chuckling is heard from upstairs. Some noise, some chuckling is heard from upstairs. What is happening? The door opens, revealing an old man clad in a faded but he's in his stockinged feet. Although over 70, he is vigorous and well-colored. His bright, malicious eyes twinkle under his heavy reddish-grey eyebrows. He is obviously either the old man Abel Merriweather or else his ghost. Who is that getting done? An old man of 70. In spite of his age, he is vigorous and well-colored, and he is getting done. Is he a ghost or Abel Merriweather? Let's transact the reading B passage the dear departed to in our next session. And now let's go through the words and their meanings. Thereafter, we'll learn some comprehension passages, their questions and answers. Daft, stupid or silly. Pinch, steal. Mantelpiece, a shelf projecting from the wall over the fireplace. Usher, lead or welcome. Complacent, self-satisfied or unconcerned. Cheaply, cheerfully. Snug, warm and comfortable. Transfixed, became motionless in fear. Malicious, harmful. Look at this passage. Are you planning to pinch it? First question. Who is the speaker? Victoria is the speaker. Second one. Who is the speaker speaking to? Answer. The speaker is speaking to Henry. See, what do you mean by pinch? Pinch means to steal. Second passage. The drunken old beggar. First question. Who is the speaker? Answer. Ben Jordan is the speaker. Second one. Who is the old beggar? Answer. Abel Merriweather. Did the old man pay the premium? No, the old man did not pay the premium. Who said that Abel hadn't paid premium? Victoria said Abel hadn't paid premium. Why is Victoria so scared? Victoria is so scared because her grandfather is getting up. So, this is all about reading a part of the Dear Departed one act play. Now, the rest of the reading passage will be transacted in the next session. Until then, bye. Thanks for watching.